So, Tom, there was 6 pages of questions that I woke up to this morning, about 250, and I think a lot of people were asking was, has the Rangers effect already filtered into the sales of your existing stock, the internet traffic, and the press interest?
So the very simple answer to that, Mark, is absolutely yes. I mean, we've done some pretty big things as a brand in the past. So I guess probably partnering with Andy Murray being the most prominent. That was a big moment for our business. I think this partnership is on another level entirely, and the level of interest, the level of scrutiny, the intensity of that interest has been, like I said, just a completely different level with this football club, which I think we probably felt as if we were fairly well prepared for that. We're a Liverpool-based brand. My brother is the co-founders of Castore, grew up in Merseyside, which is obviously a football mad city, so we probably had some insight, but actually experiencing it firsthand has been an experience, that's for sure.
Merchandise used to really be the jewel in Rangers' commercial crown. We seem to be the first in Britain to do more or less everything. And in the old days, it would make between 3 and 4 million pounds profit a year, which in today's money is somewhere between 7 and 10, depending how you calculate on it. Yeah. Are you confident that by the end of this contract, that's the type of money you'll be able to generate for the club?
So that is absolutely the ambition. Castore is a very ambitious brand. We have ambitions to challenge the Nikes, Adidas's, Pumas of this world at the very highest level. We're on a good trajectory in terms of achieving that goal. But in order to get to where we want to get to as a brand, we have to make this partnership a success. There are no ifs, buts or maybes about that. This is absolutely a key strategic priority for me personally and for Castore as a brand. So what that success looked like is, I think you've described it there, back in the 90s, Rangers Football Club was selling more shirts than Manchester United, more shirts than probably any other British football team. There is no reason whatsoever, to my mind, that should not be the objective and the ambition. So that absolutely is the intention. Of course, these things do not happen overnight. It will take a concerted level of financial investment, I think commitment from a product development perspective, a marketing perspective, investment in the e-commerce platforms of the football club. If I look at how retail as a whole has changed over the last probably 3, 4, 5 years, e-commerce and digital platforms are becoming ever more important. That trend plays perfectly to this football club because Rangers is one of a very small number of genuinely globally recognised brands. So we should be using Castore's digital capabilities and expertise to help engage with fans in Australia, North America, Scandinavia far more closely. And to my mind, if we get the product offering right, if we get the physical retail offering right, and I'm sure we'll talk about the Ibrox store today, if we get the physical retail stores right in other areas, that there's a conversation to be had around Glasgow Airport, Belfast. There are the opportunity to do some really interesting things there. And then on the e-commerce side, if we get things on the e-commerce side right, that will allow us to I think, engage with international Rangers fans far better. If we do each of those elements well, we will be successful. What that end result looks like, to me, we should challenge ourselves to get back to the 90s and where this football club was at then. Clearly, the sporting performance on the pitch is going to play a role in that as well. But for me, that is the goal. We are ambitious, and that is the ambition that we've set for ourselves.
It's a little bit strange to talk about this in a football context, but there really was a great Rangers heritage in retail. You know, the fans took a genuine pride in being the biggest, but also having a range of innovative stock that other clubs simply didn't have. The Rangers Direct, the ability, if you bought Direct and the Rangers catalogues that came out, these were things that people really took a pride in because we were first to do it. And also it got into their heads how important it was to generate the money from the retail and commercial operations. And have you been made aware of that by the club?
We have. So as you can imagine, we've had a number of conversations with James Bishgrove, the commercial team, talked about where Rangers see themselves in 3, 5, 7, 9 years time, where I see Castore and where those interests are kind of line, and we can apply hopefully Castore's expertise to help the football club and bring that, I guess, commitment to innovation, creativity, doing things differently. As I said, I am building a sportswear brand that I intend to compete on the global stage. I will not do that without working harder than the bigger brands who currently dominate the market. I won't do it without being more creative, more innovative. So all the things that you've just described there, Mark, around an app, around a catalogue, around doing interesting things, they are exactly what we intend to bring to this partnership. Now, the chronology with which we do that is clearly where the difference between success and failure is going to be found, because I think if we look at where the football club is now in terms of the product offering, in terms of the retail capabilities, in terms of the online capabilities, to my mind, they are nowhere near where they need to be or should be if I benchmark that against other leading European clubs. So I think there's almost a priority list, and there's a list of things that we need to get right off the bat, which are very simply improving the product offering. The kits themselves for the players will need to be market leading. That is my priority number one. Expanding the product range so that it includes lifestyle garments, limited edition launches, more creative kind of things that maybe haven't been done in the past. You mentioned it there around kind of hardware and goods. I think there's an awful lot, whether it's kind of calendars and a lot of exciting things that historically will have been very successful and have maybe been neglected in recent years, so that we can get the product offering right and expand that. And then once we get that product offering right, we need to serve it to fans in the best way. And that, for me, is going to be first and foremost through the Ibrox store. I don't know if it's been made public knowledge yet, but we will be making a £250,000 investment in that Ibrox store. That's something that we are very excited to do and bring to life. It's a big, I think I would hope that's going to be a big moment for the football club, given the history of what's happened into that store in recent years, and really to create a place that the fans are very kind of happy and excited to go in, and over time can really call their own, for me, is going to be a big moment. And then secondly, I alluded to it earlier around the e-commerce side. If you look at all of the leading European football clubs, they are very, very strong through e-commerce platforms. So we need to get that right. Once we get the basics right and get the foundations, and they, for me, need to happen sooner rather than later. Once we've set that strong foundation, there is then an opportunity for us to really get creative and really get exciting around the stuff that you've mentioned there, Mark, around the catalogues, around potentially, we've looked at discussions around an app and what could that mean from a retail perspective. Again, these things are not going to happen overnight, but they're all in the pipeline, and they're all things that are going to contribute to the success of this partnership.
I mean, what I found is that over the last, because of what's happened to the club in the last 10 years, there's been a great deal of frustration amongst the fans. They want to go back to those days when the club was at the cutting edge. But there is a wariness around it. And did you find when you were coming in that in terms of your business credentials and your investor base, that there were more than a few hurdles to go over there?
Oh, absolutely. It would be ridiculous to say otherwise. This is a huge football club, one of the most famous football clubs in the history of the sport, the most successful football club in the history of the sport. You guys have worked with all of the global mega brands in the past. So to enter a partnership with a challenger like Castore, which we are, we're very well aware that we're 4 years old. Like I say, we're on a very exciting journey, but we're early on in that journey. So this is a big step for us. We've been preparing for this moment for 12 months, because although this partnership moved pretty quickly and dynamically, the discussions with Rangers, as a business, we made the decision to enter the football market 12 months ago. And in the interim 12 months, we've been working very hard behind the scenes to build the infrastructure that will allow us to partner with and service a club like Rangers, of Rangers calibre, in the way that they deserve to be serviced. So building our factory capabilities, building our fabric capabilities, building our personnel, the people that we have within the business that have experience and expertise working in football and with leading clubs. That work has been going on for a long time. So when I sat down with James Fishgrove and Stuart for the first time, I was able to explain to them, yes, guys, we're new to this market, but we have no intention of making up the numbers. We have big, ambitious plans. We've got very deep-pocketed investors who are backing us to achieve those plans. And we've been doing the operational work that mean we're ready to service this partnership. And I think it was only when I had the opportunity to sit down face-to-face with those guys and explain that to them, that really the conversations moved forward in earnest, because clearly it's incredibly important that we as a business can service Rangers Football Club, because there are not many football clubs that have the size, passion of this fan base, and that's something that we are well aware of.
I mean, obviously you're saying there you seem to be very confident that you've got the scalability and the manufacturing and supply chain to cope with what's hopefully a tsunami coming your way. When you've been dealing with your suppliers and your manufacturers, has that been an issue for them? Because obviously, as you say, you're new kids in the block almost, to be able to get in there and be taken seriously.
It's an interesting question. So the honest answer to that, and it almost sounds funny to actually say it, but the honest answer is no. So if I look at what Castore's achieved in the last 4 years, our business has grown very quickly. Now, when Phil and I started the business 4.5-ish years ago, the biggest hurdle that we had to overcome was to convince factories and fabric suppliers to work with us, because generally speaking, and you've just said it there, Mark, it's very difficult. These guys don't like to work with new brands. You represent a risk and all of this kind of stuff. So that back then was very, very difficult. In the last 4 years, we've built up an awful lot of credibility with these guys, because we've made commitments to them and we've stuck to those commitments. We've achieved what we said we were going to achieve. If I told these guys I was going to order 100,000 of something, I ordered 100,000 of something and then I sold it. So over 4 years, we've built up, I think it's fair to say, credibility. Equally, we've spent an awful lot of time and energy building these relationships, so that it isn't just a case of saying, oh, by the way, we've just signed Rangers Football Club, can you just rustle up a couple of 100,000 replica jerseys for me? We've made them aware of what was coming. We've taken them on the journey with us, and they are buying into what Castore will hope to become in terms of that genuinely global brand that challenges at the very top level of this market. So I think having those relationships has been really important. Now, again, if you take a step back and look at what's going on in the retail market as a whole at the moment, Nike, Adidas, Puma are all pulling back. These guys have thousands and thousands of stores between them that are currently closed all around the world. So their demand is diminished significantly. Castore is a digitally native brand, and we've been able to I think, deal with the current coronavirus crisis in a far more agile and flexible way than maybe the big guys have. So the factories, I think crying out would probably be an overstatement, but they love the fact that in this market where there is pessimism abound, they can work with a partner like Castore who can think in a long-term way and has the ambitions to go and be bold and aggressive in a time where others are far more pessimistic. So, I mean, that's quite a long answer, but the short answer is these guys, I think, are ready to work with a new brand. They like what we've done so far and they want to work with us for the long term. So put together, actually, it was fairly simple to have those conversations.
In terms of the coronavirus and the crisis that swept the world with that, do you have a date for a launch that you had in your head initially, working on, the new season? Is that still the same? And every year, it's a perennial thing that Rangers, you always get the designs leak. Have you got the designs absolutely nailed on yet?
So two questions.
So launch date, and then have you got presumably three shirts nailed on the designs?
Yeah, so the launch date we are working towards. Our operating principle is that next season will start in line with expectations. So we will be launching the kit in advance of that date. The final date hasn't yet been confirmed. The reason for that, Mark, is because it might be that kind of I mean, no one knows what's going to go on, do they? But there might be a particularly bad piece of news, either in Scotland or Britain at some point, and we don't want to kind of lock ourselves into a date and then Nicola Sturgeon or Boris Johnson decides to kind of send us all back home and we're all locked down again. So we'll be flexible on date itself, but it will be in advance of the start of next season that we'll launch the kit. And as you can imagine, we're very excited about that. In terms of the shirt designs, that work has been underway now for some time. It's clearly an incredibly proud moment for us as a brand to announce the first Rangers kit. It's something that we're incredibly excited about. Really, really keen to see the fans' reaction to that. I've seen a fair few things online already that don't represent the final kit. So we're looking forward to releasing the final kit. I don't think anything that I've seen is in line with what those final 3 jerseys are going to look like. But we're very excited to release those, and the work is there. Albeit what's been online is not in line with what we'll be releasing.
And are you confident that the design and the quality team you put together will be matching the expectations of the fans? I think in particular, if you look at what's happened with New Balance and Liverpool, there's been some very clever, references to Liverpool's old strips, to their heritage. Is that the type of stuff you want to weave into the offer that you're going to put to Rangers fans?
It's such an interesting question, and again the answer is yes. I won't go back too long here to talk about things we've already discussed, but it is relevant to say that Castore exists in this market based first and foremost on product quality. We would not have built the business to where we are now without having products that are better than the big brands. That is the simple truth, and that's how we've stood out thus far. And we are going to apply that product expertise to Rangers Football Club, and we're really excited to have a football club that has a global fan base and will be playing on a global stage wearing products that we've put together. That is an incredibly proud moment for us. In terms of combining that heritage and the new era, the new technologies, the technically advanced manufacturing that Castore represents, for me, that is a perfect fusion. We've got a football club here with a phenomenal history. It would be remiss of us not to tap into that history. There's fans that will remember all of the famous jerseys of the past, of the 90s, when trophies were being won abound, and then even earlier than that. So we've done an awful lot of work looking into that history and making sure that in the right way we're reflecting elements of that history, whilst also very much setting out a new stall, because this is a new partnership, it is a new era, and the football club is clearly very much forward looking and looking forward to bringing trophies back to Ibrox. So hopefully we've got the balance right. Hopefully there's a nice fusion of history and modern and kind of a new exciting era. And like I say, we're really excited to release those to the fans shortly.
There are some specific things, like for instance, Rangers fans are asking, will the crest be embroidered? Will it be woven into the fabric? Will it essentially be, almost like the old iron-ons? One thing that I've been kind of taken with was on Follow many years ago. We got the Rangers had already produced a strip, and this idea came up for the 5 stars. And Nick Peel, who was the commercial director at that time, he moved heaven and earth to get transfers, and then they actually went back and redid the strips, mid-season. That was the attention to detail they put in. I've been a bit surprised that there's some fans now think, well, everybody else who's ever won a European trophy has got into a single star, or they've been working out how many times they've won the league, and everybody's doing it. And there seems to be a bit of a thirst for doing, either a new spin on that or a simpler one, and just going back to old school where you didn't have these things.
Yeah.
A bit like Manchester United. They go to FA Cup finals and they take away the badge and they put on the City of Manchester crest. That kind of thing. That Rangers fans have got a real feel for their history. So little twists like that they're always keen to have.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. And again, this for me, Mark, is very much the point that Castore wants. This is our first partnership. This is in football. We need to make it a success, and in order to make it a success, we need to do things differently. We're not coming here, we haven't entered the football market to make up the numbers and kind of continue how things have been done in the past, because the truth is we're far smaller than Nike and Adidas. So if we look to follow what they did, we're not going to beat them at their own game. The way we beat them is by being more creative, is by being different, and the things you've described there around changing the logo on the badge for particular games, around potentially doing retro designs that can be worn for particular games. That is exactly the mindset that we have, and we're going to be looking to introduce over this season and the coming season. So again, clearly certain things will take time, and we can't do all of this right off the bat. I think priority number one is clearly to launch the jerseys for next season and get that right, make sure that we have a really high quality launch and we deliver it successfully, because as you say, there's going to be, hopefully, I say touching wood, a huge demand, and we need to make sure we service that in the right way. But once we get that foundation locked in, those things absolutely we need to be looking at, and we need to be looking at soon. And I mean, next season, or season after next I should say, the 150th anniversary for the club, we already are starting to put plans in place to have fans directly involved in contributing to what kit the players are going to wear that season. Now, I'm brand new to this football club. I hope I'm going to be involved for a number of years, but I am brand new. That 150th anniversary doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to any partner. It belongs to the Rangers fans. So it would be stupid of us, if not downright disrespectful, not to have the fans involved in that and have involved in a genuine way, and not just kind of a kind of playing the game of saying, oh yeah, let's have a forum, and then we completely ignore it, as I know other brands do. Let's do that in a genuine way, because there are going to be ideas, whether it's about the badge, whether it's about embroidery, that are going to be incredibly valuable and are going to mean an awful lot to the Rangers fan base. So we want to have that two-way dialogue, and I think the 150th anniversary, there's no better opportunity to do that.
In terms of the, just to skip on to something slightly strange, but the way the questions come in, I've not organised them in any particular manner. Punters are saying, are you going to have plenty of strips with lots of X's before the L to take account for Scottish athleticism?
I think that's probably slightly unfair to Scottish athleticism. I mean, I guess what is true, and I alluded to it earlier, is that within our business, we've spent a lot of time over the last 12 months in working, in building relationships and building the factory capability to make sure we can service a football club. I think you're right, Mark. It's probably fair to say, without being disrespectful, that some football fans are maybe not ready to grace the turf of Ibrox at a world-class elite athlete level. So we'll need to have kind of a sizing options that appreciates and respects that, and that's exactly what we'll do.
Well, thank you for being so diplomatic there. On a personal level, yourself and your brother, obviously great fans at playing football and cricket. In terms of your own kind of upbringing, coming from the borough, would you have been Tranmere fans or Liverpool fans or Everton fans?
We're both. In fact, we're both Tranmere fans. So we grew up not far from Trenton Park. Like I say, Liverpool is obviously our city. So our business is based in Liverpool. We're very proud that the business is based in Liverpool. But yeah, we're both Tranmere fans. I mean, first memory of football, in fact, was watching Tranmere at Wembley, again getting beat in the Worthington Cup final, as it was called then, against Leicester City. Which was a tough day. I can't remember what I was, probably 10 years old or so. But yeah, we're both Tranmere fans, and we're both, I think, growing up on Merseyside, probably not dissimilar to Glasgow in the sense that football is not just football. It is a religion. It is something that everyone in the city almost is deeply, deeply, deeply passionate about.
Have they still got that song? Don't be mistaken, don't be misled, we're not Scousers, we're from Birkenhead.
They do still have that song. I'm sure that's going to be gracing the terraces of the Kop next season. So yeah, that song is still going strong.
In terms of kit supply, I mean, people are fascinated by every little incidence, every factor of this. So are you talking about most of your supplies seem to come from Italy and Portugal? You know, the area around Porto seems to be a great place for quality and manufacturing. So in terms of the capacity, are you going to be in Italy, Portugal, or have you got to go further east?
It will be a combination. So and again, without kind of revealing anything kind of confidential or commercially sensitive. It is completely true to say that Western Europe, and particularly Italy and Portugal, have an expertise in technical manufacturing that other parts of the world don't have. But it is also true to say that once you have instilled that technical expertise, it can be replicated elsewhere. Now, clearly, there's a certain amount of balance that has to be respected there, because you can't just go in and rip off a technology that's taken some time, and there are still things that can only be done in Portugal. But for us, it's a balance of finding the absolute highest quality kit for the players in particular. And that does mean technical advancement, it does mean innovation, and that does mean Western Europe. But the other side of the coin is that we need to deliver in big volumes. So we do have factory capabilities and partnerships in Eastern Europe, in Turkey, and in the Far East as well, in Vietnam, Cambodia, and certain parts of China. So for us, having that, as a business, having that geographic diversity allows us to be very agile. And I think there's probably no better example of that than the coronavirus crisis at the moment, because certain parts of China were just completely locked down for a period. In that period, the Turkish factories were still churning out at 100% capacity. Coronavirus then came to Europe, and Turkey went slightly down, as did Portugal, but then China was slightly more, started ramping up in the opposite direction. So having that breadth of capability is really important, and is going to be very important to service a club of the size of Rangers.
In terms of the non-playing stuff, more discreet Rangers branding. There's a market for gentlemen of a certain age that maybe want to look smart, but they don't want it to be emblazoned, with a club crest, small tees, polo shirts, that kind of stuff. Have you got all those balls in there at the same time?
That would be part of priority number one, I think it's fair to say, Mark. So, like I say, getting the shirts, getting the kit for the players, getting the replica jersey for the fans is clearly the most important thing. But we call it the lifestyle collection, what you've just described there. So everyone is likely to wear kind of the replica jersey, hopefully to Ibrox on a Saturday, and then maybe when they're playing five-a-side with their pals on Tuesday after work. But then, as you've just described it, there'll be a fan of a certain age that wants to support the club, wants to show that they support the club, but in a far more discreet way, which means tonal branding, far more understated, not quite as garish or bold, but is still a Rangers branded product. And those lifestyle products, as I said, as we call them, we think there's a big opportunity to expand that offering, because, and I guess you'll know this as well as anyone, I don't think, looking at the club in recent history, that offering has been anywhere near where it should be. So in terms of kind of things that we can do far better right off the bat, I think that's very close to the top of the list.
In terms of your research, I found there was a lot of people asking about women's clothing and women's tailored gear. Now, the kind of cliche over the years has been that women say they want that, but in the end they're actually quite content as a leisure item to buy men's sizes and men's and men's cuts. Likewise with children, people want to have the ability to kit out their kids, entirely, not just the tops. So in terms of women, is that likely to be, will there be a tailored women's range initially, or is that something you're going to have a wee look at?
So there's going to be a bespoke range for the players for the women's team. I think that was something that very early on in our discussions with James Bishgrove and the club, it was clear that was very important. So that's something that we're very keen to support. And again, if you look at the growth of women's sport and women's football, that's clearly a rapidly growing area. So I think that's right. In terms of the retail offering, I agree with you. I think there's probably a mixture, is the truth. There'll be some female fans that want to buy I guess bespoke or tailored fitted products, and there's probably some others that are happy to buy a medium men's, a small men's, or whatever that may be. So for us, it's just making sure that we have that breadth of offering. And the truth is, and this is where I think Castore's background as a digitally native brand is very important, we have the ability to read data very quickly. So the fans will tell us what they're buying. If after kind of 2 weeks after launch, we're seeing that female names are purchasing men's styles and men's sizes, there'll be an element of that can be a portion to kind of wives buying for husbands and partners, etc. But if that is consistent across the board, it's probably going to tell us that actually the average female Rangers fan is content with that male sizing. So we'll very much be led by the demand in that sense.
In terms of your own stores, there's talk about the K store in Liverpool 1. People are asking, is that still happening? There's been references to 5 of your own stores across the UK. So that's on the one hand, is that still happening? And likewise, in terms of the Rangers' physical presence in the high street, where people used to be very proud of. I think we got up to 13 or 14 Rangers stores across the UK at one point. So the mega store, the presence at Glasgow Airport, the presence in St Enoch's. What are your ideas on there?
Yeah, so the Castore stores, we will continue that expansion. As I said, Mark, our business has grown like that. So a big part of my job as one of the co-founders is saying, okay, what is the most efficient way for us to grow our business? We are a digitally native brand. The vast majority of our growth comes through digital platforms. I think I said on when we had the discussion with James Bishgrove on Rangers TV, it's almost as simple for Castore to sell product to a customer in South Korea as it is in South London. So the digital side of our business is very much the engine room. However, our business, as I said, is based on having a higher quality product than our competitors, and there's no substitute for customers being able to touch, feel, try on the product, and that naturally leads itself to having stores. So the question just becomes, okay, how many is the right number and where are the right locations? So the Liverpool store is still going ahead. Again, the honest answer is that will be opened whenever opportunity allows, given where we are at the moment and where the world is at the moment. And then there will be probably, we've already got one on the King's Road in Chelsea, and then we'll probably do 3 others over the course of the next 12 months. Where they're located remains to be finalised. Again, without boring you with too many of the details, the retail world is going to change significantly in the next 12 months. The cost of rent is going to change significantly. The government's likely to make changes to rates that are payable, which may make locations that were previously unachievable achievable. So my job is to make sure that Castore is on the front foot and ready to capitalise on those opportunities. But we think for now, probably 5 stores are where we should be as a brand. We don't want to be overly burdened by stores, but we do think they're a good opportunity. So 5 will be the right number, we think, for probably the next 12 months or so. In terms of the Ranger stores, I completely agree with what you've just said. I mean, you mentioned it, that I think 13 plus stores in the past, the demand is clearly there for that. Now, I am of the opinion that there's a balance here between a commercial decision, so how many stores are right commercially. Those stores need to make money, they need to be on the right rents in the right locations, but also there's an element of, choose my words carefully here, just competitive instinct. And I guess what I mean by that is, if Celtic have a store in Glasgow Airport, this football club needs to have a store in Glasgow Airport. Now, I'm going to have to, or someone in my business is going to go and have a conversation with the landlords that are leasing out those stores, and that is a commercial consideration. But that is something that I want to see, because I do not want fans flying in from all over the world to watch games at Ibrox and not to be able to see a Rangers store at the airport when they're coming in or leaving. And that, to a certain extent, is a matter of pride. There's other locations in Belfast, most obviously, that this football club should have stores, and there's no reason whatsoever why that has kind of been allowed to lapse in recent years. So there's certain things there that I think we can probably do fairly quickly. Again, the world is a funny place at the moment, so I'd be reluctant to make too many hard commitments. In terms of where we get up to in terms of the total stores, we think somewhere between 5 and 10 for Rangers only stores, standalone, is the right number. But again, the final number is going to be dictated by where the rental market goes in the next kind of 12, 18, 24 months, how we perform financially in the first kind of 12 months of this partnership, because the more successful we are, the more profit that there's going to be to plough straight back into the partnership in the form of opening new stores. And then I guess finally, the performance of the team on the pitch, because if the team is competing at the very highest level, competing at a high level in Europe, winning domestic trophies, then there is a far stronger business case for me to present to my board to say that we need to open more stores. But instinctively, I think between 5 and 10 over the course of this partnership is the right number of stores for Rangers Football Club.
You've hinted a couple of times there. You're talking about the player shirts and the replica shirts. Now, in the past, essentially replica shirts were worn by the players. There was no differentiation between what the players had on and what the punters were wearing in the street. In rugby league, for instance, which is obviously a far more physical sport, you actually had what they call plain weight shirts, and then you had replica shirts. Is that something you're maybe looking at? Is that the actual shirts themselves worn by the players would be slightly different just to differentiate them?
Not maybe. We are. That is locked in. We are doing that. So there will be a pro level shirt, a very top end that's at a slightly higher price point, made from the absolute highest quality fabric, all of the kind of the technically advanced features, laser cut technology, sonic welded construction, making it lighter, more flexible, more durable, doesn't absorb sweat. Because fundamentally, football at the highest level, often, I think I said this in my note on Sunday that we sent out to the fans, often comes down to the tiniest margin. So if I, as a partner of Rangers Football Club, can make a contribution to finding that extra 1%, it's my obligation and very much my intention to do that. So there will be a top level product, Mark, that's worn by the players on the pitch, and fans will have the opportunity to access that. We're just looking at the dates of launch, whether to coincide it with the replica or do it at a slightly later date. But then there will, of course, be the replica jersey, still high quality, still advanced manufacturing, still high quality fabrics, etc., but without the same level of kind of technical features that the players need to enhance their performance on a Saturday afternoon. And then that's going to be at the price point in line with kind of replica price points where they've been previously, because despite being a premium brand, when we made the decision to enter football, we knew we had no desire to kind of increase the prices of those core replica products, because that's a very emotive point for fans.
Well, I don't want to labour things, and I could go on for days on end with the questions that the fans have asked. I think we've managed to cover a hell of a lot in the time that's been available to us. Maybe the last question again. It's a little bit commercial rather than just the the rah Glasgow Rangers stuff. In terms of the deal that you've structured with the club, would I be correct in saying that basically the better you do, exponentially better the club does?
That's exactly right. So, and as you say, Mark, I'll have to be a little bit careful so James Bishgrove doesn't shoot me for revealing anything I shouldn't reveal. But what I think is entirely fair to say and is true is that within this partnership, there's a significant upfront financial investment that Castore has made, that has already been made to the football club. But beyond that, we were very keen, but both parties, we were very keen to ensure that within the structure of this deal, our interests are 100% aligned. So Rangers will benefit directly from every single product that Castore sells in the coming seasons. And on top of that, the more that Castore sells, the more that Rangers benefit. So James and the commercial team have, to my mind, our interests 100% aligned, as I say. But when I'm coming to James and saying, oh, we want to release this retro shirt, we want to release this limited edition collection, James has a direct incentive to, I suppose, give me access to the players, give me access to the training ground and Ibrox and all the things that we need to present those collections in the right way, to market them in the best way that we possibly can, because James and the football club are going to benefit directly from everything that we do, and the more we do, the more the club will benefit. So it's been really interesting for me, because in the last 12 months I've met an awful lot of football clubs and I've spoken to them about their partnerships with the big brand, and I've been amazed at how infrequently that is the case, where the football club and the brand are completely aligned. It's very much, and again, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but with the big brands, they will impose themselves on the club and say, okay, I'll pay you this fee, but then you have to give me what's called a minimum guarantee, which means you will buy off me a certain amount of product, and then it's your problem. So if you have to sell it to JD Sports or Sports Direct at 50p in the pound to get rid of it, that's your problem, not mine, because the big brands just want to underwrite their risk and make sure that they're making a profit on this individual P&L on the deal. That is not how we've done this deal. This partnership for me is is a way for Castore to grow our brand, and a very, very key moment on my journey of Castore becoming a challenger to those global brands at the very highest level. And in order to do that, I need Rangers as a football club to be completely aligned. And I cannot be successful, Castore cannot be successful in this partnership unless Rangers is successful, and that is exactly the way that it should be, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know why anyone would do any other deal. Whether that's innovative or not, I don't know. It just seems like common sense to me.
I think it fits in. If I could just finish off with, not giving you advice, but making an observation, is that because the sense of history Rangers fans have got, little starry-eyed when we walk in the front door and we got the marble staircase. And the difference is, when we got the marble staircase, we know it's made of marble. We know that if it looks like teak, it is teak. If it looks like mahogany, it is mahogany. And that's where Rangers fans want to get back to, is to have that sense of solid dependability and quality, and that's where we want to go. So hopefully with yourselves, you'll take that on board, and together both of us will prosper. Thanks very much for your time.
Really appreciate your time.
Been fascinating, and hopefully the first of many. We've got a lot better good news to come in the future.